أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ به تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن سيدنا محمدًا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة فكشف الله تعالى به الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين من ربه. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الرحمة المهداة وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praises belonging to Allah Azza wa Jal, and may the peace and blessings be upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upon his family and upon his companions and all those who follow in his guidance until the day of judgment. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal on the last Friday in the month of Sha'ban to bless us to witness the month of Ramadan. اللهم أعنا على صيامه اللهم أعنا على قيامه على الوجه الذي يرضيك عنا. اللهم اكتبنا فيه من عتقائك من النار. اللهم اعتق رقابنا ورقاب آبائنا وأمهاتنا وإخواننا وأخواتنا وأزواجنا وذرياتنا من النار وادخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار. We pray to Allah Azza wa Jal, as we're about 3 days away from beginning the month of Ramadan, to make it a month of true change in our lives. We ask that He gives us the barakah and khair and goodness in Ramadan and after Ramadan, and that goodness enters our heart, our homes, and changes our lives in a way that's most pleasing to Him subhanahu. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. Amma ba'd, brothers and sisters, today on this last khutbah, you may expect khutbah directly about Ramadan and its virtue. And of course that would make most sense, given that we're about to start a month of ibadah. However, the subject of Ramadan will be addressed in a little bit of a different way. Because Ramadan can only really change my life if I first have a realization of what's going wrong in my personal life. There's always something that needs to be addressed, fixed. Sometimes minor, sometimes major. Actually, you know what? Very often major. Because life, as we experience it, now we took a break from everything else that's happening outside. But life as we experience it is often very complicated. And you'll hardly find a person who's not going through something that is really, really difficult. And the impact of it is major in many ways. All kinds of different things. We might be going to Ramadan, brothers and sisters, with kaba'ir on our slate. Many people are that person. It's not an isolated thing. It's not a rare thing for someone to enter Ramadan and they have on their conscience kaba'ir, major sins. Sometimes that might be in the form of acts of aggression and oppression. Sometimes it might be in the form of addictions. Whether it's a drug-related thing or a shahwa and lust-related things. Sometimes we might be going into Ramadan with a heavy heart because of a lot of conflicts that have weighed us down in our businesses, in our homes, in our friendships. There's no way I could really find transformation through ibadah if I don't start by realizing, well, where's the problem? What do I need to fix about me, about myself? What transformation needs to happen? That's an important starting point, brothers and sisters. And unfortunately, that starting point for our khutbah today starts off with a devastating thing that happened in Dallas during this past week. And if any of you follow the news, most of you have probably heard about it. A young man, 19 years old, struggling with depression for years. He and his brother deciding to take out their whole family and killing themselves. It's a devastating thing. 6 people found dead. Killed by who? By an outsider, a stranger, someone who broke into the house? No. A mother, father killed by the son. Siblings killed by a brother. A grandparent killed by a grandson. That's something so devastating. But unfortunately, it's not an uncommon headline today. We've been saying stories like this a lot in our khutbah. But what hits home here is that it was a Muslim family. It was a Muslim family. And it magnifies how we as a community, behind closed doors, are dealing with serious stuff. Serious stuff. This isn't, just 1 in a million cases, brothers and sisters. We're dealing with serious stuff behind closed doors. Many in our own community are dying because of drugs. Many in our own community are doing similar acts or getting so far away in their shahawat and in their decisions that they're so far removed from any effect and impact of deen. Brothers and sisters, this story started out years before there was signs. This young man constantly trying to commit suicide. And again, that's something, suicidal thoughts. That's something that a lot of our youth are dealing with. Suicidal thoughts, cutting themselves up. Why is that happening? Well, it's a big discussion to have. And it can't be done in a khutbah, unfortunately. This is someone who was diagnosed with depression. And of course, this is something that we need to address head on. It's not a taboo. It should not be a taboo issue. There's something called the regular day-to-day depression that you feel because you had a tough day, because things didn't go your way, because you haven't done the normal routine that you do, or because you got into an argument with someone. And there's something else called clinical depression. Someone diagnosed with depression. This young guy diagnosed at 9th grade with depression and trying to deal with it for years and trying to get it addressed. But for one reason or another, when it was addressed, it wasn't addressed in a way that really fulfilled him. This is something we need to think about, brothers and sisters. We need to remove this taboo, because many people, when it comes to this issue, اوعى تفضح العيلة. Beware, don't disgrace our family, don't go tell anybody. You're dealing with these thoughts, push them out. استعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Don't be a devil. Reconsider your thoughts. What are you doing? What are you saying? What, you don't have any iman? اذكر Allah. Remember Allah. And these methods of suppressing serious problems can have intensive blowback. And that's something we need to be careful of. Brothers and sisters, now of course, yearly we have over 1 million attempted suicides in America. Over 1 million, this is statistics. Over 1 million people try to take their life every single year in this country. And of course, Muslims are part of that. How much? It doesn't matter, but the point is the problem is present in our community. But something caused this particular case to go to violence. Well, not every person who's depressed goes and kills their whole family. What caused that here? Well, that's a point of reflection. And you know what? Many people, when they read that article, their immediate reaction is, he's going to burn in hell forever. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man taradda min jabalin faqatala nafsahu fahuwa fi nari jahannam yataradda fiha khalidan abada." Some people, that's how they approach this type of content. They think, he's going to burn in hell forever. He's going to keep on experiencing the pain of what he caused to himself because he committed suicide. But that doesn't address the problem. That type of attitude is not the type of attitude that's going to bring solutions to our community. Yeah, you could have a conversation or 10 about how entitled kids are. This is Jil Daya, this generation. Jil Kullu Dala. They're all a bunch of entitled, spoiled kids. But that's not going to make the future better. That type of discourse is the discourse of al-ya'is al-ba'is, alladhi ya'isa min ummati Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That type of person is not prophetic by any stretch. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam teaches us his care for the well-being of people. Look at this hadith. And brothers and sisters, I know these words aren't easy to hear. And I'm not saying that some of the criticisms of the younger generation are not on point. But if we're in the business of criticizing problems, well, you know what? That subject will never end. If we're in the business of really trying to find solutions, well, you know what? That's what's going to make a difference. Everyone can look at our reality and see how wrong things are. But few people can really try to do something about it and make tomorrow a better situation for our families. This is the prophetic ethic. Look at this hadith of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in the hadith, "Mathali wa mathalukum kamathali rajulin أوقد نارا فجعل الجنادب والفراش يقعن فيها وهو يذبهن عنها وأنا آخذ بحجزكم عن النار وأنتم تفلتون من يدي." The Prophet ﷺ, he made it very clear. The Prophet ﷺ said, you want to know how I am and you are? My example and your example, it's like someone lit a fire. And all of the moths and the insects, they started going towards the fire. And I'm trying to push you guys away from that fire. And I'm trying to hold you back. Don't fall into it. That's al-khuluq al-Muhammadi. That's the prophetic Muhammadan character. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَأَنْتُمْ تَفْلَتُونَ مِنْ يَدِي. That's the type of shafaqah that I need to have on the ibad, the type of compassion and mercy when addressing these types of issues. Getting back to Ramadan, brothers and sisters, what does this khutbah have to do? What does this incident have to do with Ramadan? It has to do with Ramadan front and center. Because Ramadan, brothers and sisters, if we keep on talking about change and taghyeer and transformation, وَمَا إِلَى ذَلِكَ, None of us are going to start Ramadan on the same footing, in the same place. And that's okay. That's okay. If you're going into Ramadan with kaba'ir on your shoulders, if you're going into Ramadan looking at your life and say, man, I've done a lot of awful things, I don't really think that there's any good in me. If you're going into it with that attitude, don't do that. Don't do that. It's okay if you're not that person who can do khatam in Ramadan 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. It's okay if you're not that person who is at a point where you can pray all night and never get tired for a moment. That's not what it's about. Brothers and sisters, transitioning, and this is something we talked about, but now I'm going to highlight it from a different standpoint. Ramadan, many people, they approach it and focus on the mechanics, the rituals of the ibadah, the outer shell. Oh, I'm going into Ramadan, I have to do this amount of raka'at, I have to do this amount of khatamat, and I have to do this amount of time in the masjid, and I'm going to do i'tikaf in al-ashr al-awakhir, and I'm going to do... And these are all things that are virtuous. We encourage these things. But how can I go from the mechanics, being a person who يتعبد لله عز وجل في ظاهر الأمر, and just in that apparent way, and really find أثر العبادة ملموس في قلبي وفي حياتي? How can I really feel that intimate relationship with ibadah? That's something that's worth reflecting on, because that's what really is going to change us. You know what? There are people who do tons of khutmas in their life. They complete the Quran many times over. But perhaps some people, in their small amount of ibadah, it's so impactful that it has the impact to outweigh all of that. And this is something that you take from the hadith of the bitaqa. It's known as hadith al-bitaqa. Look at this hadith. We've mentioned it in our khutbah before. How this individual comes on the Day of Judgment with sijillat, volumes upon volumes of wrongdoing. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla asks them, do you have anything else to offer? And the man, looking at his ruin, at his demise, I'm going to hell. That's it, it's done. Look at all these sayyat. I don't have anything. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla tells that person, Bala, you do have something. And that thing is not something light, and you will not be oppressed today. Then the hadith of the bitaqa, the scroll, is brought forward, in which it's recorded this person said, La ilaha illallah. And the hadith mentions, then it's placed in the scale, fatashat as-sijillat. Those volumes are completely outweighed. Now, of course, what is this type of la ilaha illallah? We say la ilaha illallah a lot. But not every time you say la ilaha illallah, it's the same. It's not always the same. Yes, we pray ibadah and we do our raka'at, but not all raka'at are the same. Yes, we might fast, but not all fasts are the same. There are different variables that impact the ibadah. What state was this person in when he said la ilaha illallah? Was it in a state of intense bala and trial, where 99 out of 100 other people would have folded, they would have fell in that test, but that person said La ilaha illallah and endured and pushed through it? Or was it another situation? Brothers and sisters, this is the type of relationship we want with ibadah. If Ramadan is supposed to be shahr al-taghyir, how is ibadah going to change me, transform me? Think about it for a moment. When we say that Ramadan is shahr al-taghyir, we repeat it a lot. The month of change, the month of change. What do we mean? Does that mean that صلي لك ليلة في رمضان وخلاص الإدمان على المخدرات هيروح? Drug addiction is going to go. Pray for a night and that's it. Problem solved? Is that what we mean by shahr al-taghyir? Or is it do a little dhikr and that's it? Depression's going to go away. It's going يتبخر. It's going to just evaporate. Is that what it means, that Ramadan is the month of change? No, that's not what it means. Of course, kalla. Our deen teaches and emphasizes. No, you need to follow certain measures. لقد خلقنا الإنسان ولقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. We've created the human being in the most perfect fashion. And the qalb and the ruh is one part of it, a very important part of it. But the mind is also another important part of it. I need to get these issues addressed. Yes, can spirituality help someone who's depressed? Yes, it can help. But sometimes certain types of depression, clinical depression, sometimes even if you have spirituality, it's not something that you can easily manage all by yourself. There's other things you need. You need to get things addressed medically. Sometimes you need someone to talk to. And that's not something bad. That's something that we learn from this situation. If you know someone going through a lot of different things, don't just tell them, go salli lak rak'atain wa tawakkal ala Allah. No, that's not how you solve problems. You need a support system. Our Prophet ﷺ needed it. We mentioned this in our Khutbah. Our Prophet ﷺ needed a support system. وهل في ذلك عيب ومنقصة لنبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Is this something deficient that our Prophet needed support around him? No, it's not. When the Prophet ﷺ lost his support system, they called it عام الحزن, the year of sorrow, because the Prophet lost his wife, who was his emotional and financial support, and lost his uncle, who was his social support and his defense. We need to break out of that taboo. Don't talk to people. Don't let people start talking about you or looking down upon you. Tawakkal ala Allah, just deal with it on the inside. وَإِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. And sometimes a hadith will be used in such a wrongful way. وَإِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. Does this mean don't go to anyone for help? Does it mean don't turn to people for guidance when you need it? Does it mean don't try to get your issues addressed and you could do it all by yourself and that's it? No, that's not what it means. We don't want these types of situations, brothers and sisters, to fester. You know what, brothers and sisters? This is actually one of the most noble types of ibadah. If you are listening and you know someone in your mind, or you have someone back at home who you know is struggling with intense issues inside, don't leave that person alone. Don't let time pass. Don't say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to mind my own business. No, help that person. Sometimes the person can't ask for help for themselves. Sometimes the person doesn't know any better to ask for help for themselves. We need to be that person who brings that change to our lives, to the lives of others. That's what the message of our beloved Prophet ﷺ is all about. Brothers and sisters, if this case in Texas showed us anything, it shows us that today people have a lot of data, information, and things are so more readily available than they ever were before. People have ways to be very expedient and time efficient in their lives. But there's something that people are struggling with today. Something so crippling, so devastating, so disabling. That's something that's very human on the inside. No matter how many iPhones come out, this problem is not going to get resolved. No matter how sooner people are able to get to Mars and build rocket ships or whatever they're going to do, this issue is not going to get resolved. It's something very human on the inside. People might end up having so many advancements on the level of society, but we might end up losing ourselves in the process. This is not something light. This is from the corruption of society and society's moral fabric crumbling. What good would it do if we are able to make robots and have AIs and artificial intelligence and in the process we can't live with ourselves? We can never be comfortable when we're sitting alone. We can never experience that joy of reflection and tafakkur and tadabbur, that joy of interacting with healthy relationships and having a good support system around us. That's what it's all about. And that's what people are struggling with today. It's not something that cannot be resolved. When you have a mental health issue, there's a reason why most mental health issues don't end up in violence. There are things that we could do. Does deen, هل الدين له أثر? Yeah. Does the good family environment at home have an impact? Yeah. It doesn't mean that خلاص, fulan, that's it. He's clinically depressed or he's bipolar or schizophrenic. خلاص, حياته انتهت. That's it. There's nothing we can do. That's it. It's a statement of fact and we just got to live with it. No, we cannot allow our nufus and the shaitan to decimate our lives. If we do, then how on earth are we going to come to the masjid and really find any sweetness in ibadah in Ramadan? That's how all of this relates to Ramadan. Brothers and sisters, getting real with ourselves. That's the first step in the process of having a meaningful Ramadan. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to help us heal and to remove these heavy feelings inside that many of us feel. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make this Ramadan a month in which the burdens are lifted. These burdens, these ahmal and awzar that are upon the shoulders of most people. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make them lifted and removed, and to replace it with the lightness of ibadah and the guidance of huda and the fulfillment of a true, intimate relationship with Him. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijabah. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. أما بعد, brothers and sisters, the things that could be said addressing our reality as individuals, family, as a community, as humanity as a whole are so many. The problems, the struggles, and the potential solutions. We need to be that solution. You know what? If I'm not that solution, then my ibadah will amount to very little. And that's the important lesson that we need to keep in mind going into Ramadan. That's the only thing that's really going to give meaning and life to my iman. When it's truly transformative, when it doesn't only relate to 1 month in the year, when it doesn't only relate to one space or one time frame in my day. No, it's infused in everything. No, it's experienced in everything I do and everything I say and everyone I transact with and deal with. That's what we should be working towards. As we're going into Ramadan, brothers and sisters, we need to be that healing force for ourselves and our families. With the number of people here, we're talking about over 100 different families from our community. Every single one of us has a responsibility to go back home. And don't say that there's nothing that needs to be addressed or fixed, because every single one of us has that. We all have that responsibility to go back home and to be that light of positive change in our homes. We need that. We need that. Too much time in life is wasted away with distractions, with conflicts, with things that are devastating for us on many levels. And the only way to truly experiencing and realizing the sweetness of Iman is in its application to all facets of life. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us the nur of huda for our community and our society and for the ummah and for people all over. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us beacons of positive energy, beacons of prophetic guidance. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make our experience this Ramadan different. I ask Him Subhanahu to make us of those who transfer from the mechanics to the spirit of ibadah. And I ask Him Subhanahu to make this Ramadan a month of great and abundant blessings for the ummah. I ask Him to make it a month of رفع للبلاء ورفع للكرب والوباء عن البشرية جمعاء. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make the month of Ramadan a month of fath and nasr and tamkeen for the ummah of Al-Habib Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma qurra a'yunana بفك الكرب عن أمة حبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، كل عبادك المستضعفين في كل مكان، كلهم ناصرا ومعينا ومؤيدا وظهيرا، وكل عبادك المرضى اللهم اشفهم بشفائك، عجل لهم بالفرج، عجل لهم بالفرج. اللهم عجل لنا جميعا بالفرج في حياتنا وفي أسرنا وفي جاليتنا وفي أمتنا. اللهم ربنا اختم لنا بخير أجمعين، واجعل خير عمرنا آخرة، واجعل خير عملنا خواتمة، واجعل خير أيامنا يوم أن نلقاك فيه وأنت راض عنا. آمين آمين. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.